Hey, Galen, are you on?
Yes, I'm here.
I just want to make sure I don't have anybody in the waiting room. I think I've been,
I'm I'm watching.
okay. I
Are you
think
the
I've
one?
been,
Are you the one to keep letting people in?
no comment.
Yeah, I'm managing it, so don't worry
Okay.
about it.
All right, good.
Hey, but before we get started, go ahead. I'll let so you guys start on time. Uh, in this session, crew building, I have Greg Blum and Kyle DeBuse. I reached out to these two guys because I remember my second year in the Mid American Conference. Greg, Kyle, and actually Dan Richard, we were all in the same crew, and uh, Doug Warnes, who is one of the speakers in the back judge session, was also on that crew, and that year was probably one of the best times and the most fun I've had in officiating because of the crew cohesion and so much fun that we had on the field as well as off the field. We've all separated now and gone our different ways as far as crews that we're on, but we always make time to, if it's just even a text, to reach out to one another throughout the season, throughout the year, just to make sure and see how each one is doing. So that's why I thought these two guys would be great for sharing how it is to be uh, a great crewmate, and also that they're just two funny guys who I think will work well together today. Go ahead, Greg. It's all yours.
All right, Galen. And if I slip and call Galen Whalen, maybe that story will come out along the way here. But please join everybody here. First of all, I want to say thanks to each of the people who have signed up for this clinic today. I think last count, I thought I saw 75, 80 people or so. And you think about how, across the country, how many clinics are going on right now, but 80 of us officials have taken a Saturday out of their, summer weekends to pay money to learn about football. And I appreciate that. I've been there. I'm proud to be part of today, but I also want to appreciate or just pass along my appreciation for everybody who's taken the time to get better today, because you've taken some steps in the direction that you want to get to, and others haven't. So congratulations. So Kyle and I will take about 20, 25 minutes, walk through some items, and we're going to talk about crew building. We're going to come at it from a couple different perspectives. Not only crew chief, but also crew member, two different, kind of polar opposites in terms of the approach. And you're probably thinking, well, why is the center judge talking about being a crew chief or building a crew? Up until about 4 years ago, I had been a referee for my career. Now I'm a backpedaler and a ball spotter. So I think I've elevated my my standing in life. So I'm going to jump in first and just talk crew chief. And again, we're not talking about referee. Referee and crew chief are completely separate items when it comes to roles within a crew. A referee is a person who steps on the field 90 minutes before kickoff and then walks off the field at the end of the game. Crew chief is every minute of the crew's life outside of that, from film review to putting fouls into the reports, to dealing with our bosses, to dealing with and working with crewmates, et cetera. So we're talking about the crew chief perspective today. I want to introduce Casey Stengel, famous New York Yankee, New York Mets manager. And Casey had a particular way of approaching his team. And let's hear from Casey. I got 24 people in my dugout. 8 of them love me, 8 of them hate me, and 8 of them don't give a damn. My job as manager is to make sure the ones who don't give a damn stay away from the ones who hate me. Now, that's one end of the perspective in terms of approach to crew building. Let me jump into the other end of it, which is crew chief characteristics. And I'm going to give some pieces of, if you're thinking about being a crew chief, think about these things along the way. If you already are a crew chief, think about some of these things. And we're never going to hit all of these things in terms of the line items, but to me, these are things just kind of pay attention to as we go about our crew chief duties. The first one, and think about what John was saying earlier, be willing to outwork your crewmates. Now, just working isn't necessarily in itself a positive thing. It's productive work. But you also have to prove to your crewmates that you're willing to put the time in, and you're willing to put as much time in as anybody else. Try to be the best rules person in the room, not only your book rules, but also your philosophical approach. Know the reason behind the rules and not just the rules. But you may be the second best rules person in the room, but I think you got to be a pretty competent person when it comes to rules, philosophy, and of course, book rules. I think it's important that you know the mechanics at each position. And I would also say you better know them as well as the people that are working those positions. You know, I've worked with people that have gone on to work multiple national championships. And even when I was working with those folks on field, I felt it was important that I better at least know where they're looking, you know, who's going to be handling what in terms of a sideline play, et cetera. But we need to know the mechanics as well as anybody else, because ultimately we are held responsible for where our people are standing and looking. A crew chief to me has to be the most selfless person on the crew. In the end, the crew chief is there to make their crew mates as good of officials as possible. And that sometimes means putting ourselves aside to take the extra time or effort to help our crewmates. So that selflessness, I think, is critical. Lead by example when it comes to communication. Communication is going to make or break any crew. Communication is going to make or break any official, but certainly communication will make or break any crew chief. The best crew chiefs are the ones who communicate the best with their crew as a group, but also with individual crewmates. And I added this next bullet point as I was listening to John: be the most prepared official on the field. I think it goes without saying. You better know the mechanics, the rules, philosophy, et cetera. But when you walk out on the field, make it a goal to be the most prepared official on the field. And all these bullet points say is lead by example. The last piece that I'll mention, if you've delved into emotional intelligence, kudos. If you haven't, take a look around. There's lots of books available, some easy reads. But emotional intelligence is a simple philosophy, and it just means that you have a good read for people. But not only the people in the room, but how we impact everybody in the room. In other words, when we have a crew meeting, does everybody feel like they can step up and say whatever they want? If there's one person that feels like they're constrained or doesn't feel like they have a voice in the room, are we able to recognize that? So it's not only reading the people in the room, but it's also important to be able to understand how we as crew chiefs affect the room. So it's kind of a give and take. It's a two-way street. Like I said, there are some pretty neat emotional intelligence workshops out there. There's an emotional intelligence 2.0 book out there that's you can knock out in a couple days, but you talk about terrific information, not only in running a crew, but to me, it translates into our family life in terms of our relationships with our spouses and kids, but also our work life too. You know, and part of the emotional intelligence is, you know, at the start of the year, you're with 6, 7, 8, 9 people week in and week out, and they're coming from different parts of the country or different parts of the state or the region. And somebody from Madison, Wisconsin is going to bring a certain life experience. Somebody from Omaha, Nebraska is going to bring a certain life experience. Somebody from Boston, Massachusetts is going to bring a different life experience. And as a crew chief, that's where your success lies, is knowing your people, bringing out the best in them. And keep in mind, you know, Galen mentioned Kyle and Dan and Galen and I were on a crew together. We were lucky to be on a crew together for a couple of years, some of us. And I'm telling you right now, as their crew chief, how I would approach Dan was different than how I would approach Galen, which was different how I approach Kyle. So each person, it's a different relationship, but keep in mind, crew chief, it is always a people business. And if we keep that at the front, you'll be a successful crew chief. It's amazing what happens when a group of people pull in the same direction. It's amazing how quickly a person grows and improves in that dynamic. And it's amazing how quickly a team grows and improves. Crew chiefs, you are looking at that first sentence, and that's what we were ultimately after. Getting everybody in the same room, going in the same direction. And when that happens, it's magical. It truly is when everybody buys in. And we kind of put all the little things that distract us away, and we worry about crew development. We worry about helping each other. And when we're all going in the same direction, it's pretty neat what happens in terms of the not only the crew growth, but how each individual official can improve quicker and in greater bounds than in a situation where a crew's not going in the same direction. So let's talk about, Galen mentioned earlier, the year that Kyle and Dan and Doug and I spent together, that we're friends for life. You would be shocked at how much time we waste texting each other to this day, just about stuff throughout the year. But it was a great year. We all bought in. So what does that look like? Well, at the top there, on field, the crew is better. The communication's better. Individuals improve quicker and in bigger bounds. And the crew, in terms of peak performance, to me is higher than any other crew in terms of that cohesion part of it. So again, just that simple fact of crew chief, are you telling the crew how we're going to, or where we're going to go, but more importantly, how we're going to get there? And if that communication is open and a two-way street, neat things happen off the field. When we all buy in, special bonds are created from crewmate to crewmate. And it's something that is over and above just working a game. It's about buying in. It's about being selfless. It's about joining up at the hip. It's about that team approach that when that happens and it's truly a two-way street between teammates, some pretty neat things happen. We talk all the time. I don't care. And like John said earlier, some of my happiest moments as an official were as a D3 official and as a high school official. And it wasn't because of many of the games. I won't remember many of the plays in D3 or D1. I will always remember the people, and I will always remember those experiences because of the people. And that's what we're talking about in terms of the crew chief part of it. And crew building is, of course, evergreen. It never ends. It's always a continual process. Every single day, a crew is going to get a little bit better or a little bit worse. There's never kind of a static day. There's always something that can happen in terms of that crew building, especially now before the season starts. Crew chiefs, your number one job is to make sure that everybody's ready to come to officiating on game day, period, end of story. That's why your bosses have installed you as a crew chief, because they have faith in you that they can have you take that crew and have them ready to do the job come game day. The best teams, businesses, crews, they know their mission, where we're going, but also their core values, which will deliver them to that mission location, so to speak. And it's about getting buy-in from crewmates. Again, everybody going in the same direction. And when buy-in happens from the crew, that's when the magical pieces happen. So how do you do that? Some simple pieces. It's about communicating how we're going to get there and their investment in that and their fiduciary in terms of the crew success. So some examples that I've used over the years. As soon as I've gotten my crew, the first thing that I've done is made a phone call to each crew member. And I want to get buy-in on that phone call. And I want that crewmate to know how I'm going to approach things from that point until the end of the year. So a phone call is going to sound a little bit like, hey, crewmate, just got the word from the boss. I'm looking forward to working with you this year. I think we have a special group. I think we're going to do some special things together. And just so you know, crewmate, and remember, this could be a rookie crewmate, this could be a 20-year veteran, but I'm going to do everything I can, crewmate, to help you be successful. I'm going to ask you for your leadership, rookie, 20-year vet. However you're going to bring that leadership to the table, I will welcome it, and I'm going to expect it. And I also think, crewmate, that we're going to put a pretty darn good product out in the field and make our bosses proud. I want that crewmate after that phone call to think, I may not know this Blum guy, but at least I know that he's putting the crew ahead of anything else, and he's willing to put the work in to not only help me be successful, but more importantly, the crew. This is something that came from John. John Perry was our referee coach up until about 2016 or 2017. And one of the things that John suggested probably 6-7 years ago was, in June, July, go out and ask your crewmates for some goals, personal goals that you're going to share with your crew, because once they share those goals with the crew, then the crew becomes responsible for helping that crewmate meet those goals. So sometime in July, before September 1 start, I ask each crewmate to send me 2-3 goals. Let me know of a rural area that is kind of a bugaboo for you, and you want maybe some help from crewmates or something that you're going to put out there as a personal goal. And also, crewmate, try to make these goals easily identifiable in terms of, did I pass or did I fail? So, for example, let's see, Jeff Meslow, he wanted to be 100% at the snap fouls. He's a line of scrimmage official, a false start, illegal formation, delay, illegal motion, etc. You want to be 100% on those type of fouls. After timeouts, he wanted to be the line of scrimmage official whose team was coming out first. You wanted to make sure that he wasn't, we weren't losing time with that. So just those little things. Again, hey, crewmate, tell us where you want to get better so that we know we can help you. And guess what happens when everybody sees other goals, and suddenly those goals become attained, because everybody that sees Jeff Meslow's goals want to help him accomplish those. So again, this is July. We haven't even put a football on the field yet. We're already talking about goals for the year. I would create a crew manual, because I want to try to get as many questions answered in July that instead of having those pop up in September. So I put together a 14, 15 page manual, just some high level items. If anybody ever wanted to take a look at that, I'm happy to share it. But I would also spell out in our crew manual how we're going to go about our business for the year. So this was our mission statement. We're here to give them a good game. Who's them? Players, coaches, participants. It's not about us. It's about them. We're going to work hard in our own area. We're going to trust one another to work hard in our own area. We're not going to be one of those crews that nitpicks and has 20 fouls a game when really 12 or 13 will get you through the game. And yeah, we're going to work hard, but we're also going to have some fun, because none of us go back to our spouses and show them what we actually make per hour, because if they saw that, they would probably yank our reffing card. So we're going to have some fun along the way. And here, this is straight from our crew manual. In 2016, the last year I was a crew chief, and we have a core values page, believe it or not. It's for, my wife laughs at this stuff because I put together core values for a football crew, but we also know in July how we're going to be successful. So just a couple of those items. Again, our customer are the players. It's never about us. It's about the players first and foremost. Number two, no matter how we officiate, if we're really good or really poor that day, we'll do it together. Period. End of story. Communication, number three, is the most important thing that we can practice with crewmates, players, coaches, etc. We'll always put that at the front. There you go again. Officiating is a people business. When we walk out in the field, without even verbalizing, we are communicating to everybody out there, players, coaches, chain crew, trainer. What are we communicating about us to them? The importance of leadership, being an officiating artist and not a scientist, competing to be the best dead ball officials, having fun, hustling, just some pieces that we put out in July so that come September, we kind of know how we're going to be successful for the year. Even in our pregame, I'm going to spell out, hey, when we get together, when we're having our pregame, it is 100% positive working environment. I don't want to hear about grades. I don't want to hear about the bosses. I don't want to hear about other officials. When we get together, we're moving on and we're going to have optimum preparation for the game coming up either that day or the next day. And these are the 2 pages that concluded our crew manual. When teams outgrow individual performance worries and learn team trust, the only outcome is team and individual excellence. Eliminate the following words from your football vocabulary: me, I, and my. And instead try we, us, and ours. So again, going back to that second slide, we talk about referee, walking out in the field, walking off. We talk about the crew chief part of it, everything else. And really a crew chief is about creating a culture. And a lot of that has to do with your communication level and what you're communicating in terms of where the crew is going to go, but more importantly, how we're going to get there. So I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to just check to see if we have a question. No questions. So I'm going to turn it over to Kyle. We're going to continue. We'll flip it now from the crew chief to the crew member, and we'll just watch, excuse me, how that cultural part will connect now with the crewmate part of it, and you'll see some similarities here. So Kyle.
Thanks, Greg. So when Waylon asked me to put together some bullet points on what makes a good crewmate, I took some information and wrote down some stuff I thought would makes one. And then I did talk about 3 or 4 other officials that I really respect and tried to put it all together into a few bullet points here. What I think, the first one, own your position. The number one thing an official can do to the good crew is not ensure that everyone is on confidence in him. Nothing can sabotage an official status as a good crewmate, like making the others feel he or she is the weak link that they need to cover. And Bill and John Perry brought that up. The way you do that is you prepare for the upcoming game. You don't want to be the guy sitting in pregame, not having a clue what these 2 teams do, tendencies, whatever, who the good player is, if the quarterback's right-handed or left-handed. If you're asking questions like that, your crew knows you did not prepare for the upcoming game. Be yourself. Fake personalities, even a positive personality is not genuine, can cause others on the crew to question your motive. If you're having a bad day, walk up and tell your crewmate, man, this isn't going right. You don't always have to try to be the Mr. I'm great, everything's great, I'm happy. Like Blum said, we talk a lot, Galen, Dan, Richard, and myself in the off season, and sometimes life's not perfect. You don't have to fake it. Just say, hey, things aren't going well with me personally, whatever. It's life. Don't try to fake it. People will know it. We'll read right through it. Just be yourself. Be ready and able to step up when needed, be it in a rules, timing, or judgment situation. Nothing will be more appreciated than someone stepping up when the time calls for it. Perfect example, I had my first year, 2018, on Dan Capron's crew. It's a game is at Rutgers, and it was Buffalo Rutgers. Opening kickoff, ball gets kicked. I can't really see, ball does get touched and goes out of bounds. Well, I'm looking at the game clock and it still says 15. So right before the snap, I killed it, came in and go, Dan, that ball was touched. no time ran off the clock. I knew at that time, Dan looked at me and he goes, "You're right. No one got that." So we ran 2 or 3 seconds off the clock. And I think at that time, Dan really appreciated what I did and trusted me just for catching. I mean, it was the opening kickoff. No one's going to care if you miss 2 or 3 seconds, but Bill will. But, you know, I mean, in the game, it wouldn't have really mattered. But at that time is when I think Dan Capron really trusted me as a crewmate. You know, while stepping up is needed in critical situations, don't interject yourself in every aspect of the game. You know, pre-game, crew call, or study group. You know, you don't have to be the guy who's always talking or always wanting to disagree with somebody else. Or, you know, when you're talking about a play, John Perry just talked about it. You know, you too many times you sit there and you'll talk about a play in a pregame, and then all of a sudden people go, "Well, what if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens?" Well, let's just basically talk about what's going to happen 95% of the time. We don't always have to go, "Well, what about this? What about this? What about this?" Just to keep talking or just to make yourself feel like I have to be part of the conversation. You don't always have to be part of the conversation. Be a calming influence on the field. Someone who runs hot, I put hot, or argumentative, causes issues for the entire crew on and off the field. You know, there's situations as a crewmate when you're going to need help or you make a mistake and someone's going to come to you. Hopefully you have a good crewmate who comes to you. I've been with crewmates that if you go and try and talk to them, they're never going to admit they're wrong. They won't be taken off a flag. Don't be that guy. If someone's coming to help you, it's because they probably are almost 100% sure. I would say 100% sure that you may have made a mistake or need help, and they're trying to help you. Take their advice. Pull your weight. Don't be the guy who never drives or picks up a tab. This is pretty important to me. I think off the field is maybe even be bigger than on the field. Yeah, don't be the guy who, you know, you after the game, you go out, you want to have a few appetizers and drinks. Don't be the guy who never chips in, or the guy who doesn't want to, well, no, I'm not going to eat anything. And then when the appetizers show up, you're eating, and then you don't throw in any money. Don't, you know, pick up a tab every now and then. Go, you might have to stay at the airport a little bit longer or wherever to pick up, so you can pick up one of your crewmates to drive them there. You know, they may be running 30 minutes late. Their flight is canceled or delayed or whatever. But, you know, just you guys, we're all in this together. So sometimes you have to sacrifice to do what's best for the crew. You know, be punctual. This is the last 2 referees I've had were very, very strict on this. If they crew dinners was always, we're leaving the hotel at 6 o'clock. Well, we had a few guys who would leave their hotel room at 6 o'clock, which you're just going down the steps, right? But to both of my referees, they did not. I mean, you needed to be there 10 minutes early, at least, you know. John O'Neill calls it Lombardi time. So just, you know, if you're, I get it, people are going to be late, it happens. But if you're the guy who's always late, always has an excuse to why you were late, it doesn't give you a very good reputation. The last thing you want is your referee calling your supervisor saying, "I don't want this guy on my crew." You know, the last thing, embrace your strengths and work on your weaknesses. We all know what those are for yourself. You know, continue to work on them. It'll help obviously on Saturdays or Friday nights. And I don't know. It's I think so many people get caught up with, you know, like Greg said, your call, do this, do that. What was my grade? As long as you're working on your strengths and you continue to work on your weaknesses, you'll be fine on game day. So that's all I put together. I hope it made sense. I think you'll be able to get this information after the clinic if you want to keep it. So
Thanks,
that's
Kyle.
all I got.
And you'll note that, you know, from Kyle's perspective, not many of those things are happening when the ball's live. Whether it's being punctual, whether it's pulling your weight, whether it's the, you know, rules knowledge, et cetera, stepping up. A lot of that's during a dead ball on field or completely off the field. So again, there's lots and lots of ways that we work together on crew building, and it's not a crew chief responsibility. It's a crew responsibility, but it's also up to the crew chief to spell out, you know, kind of that vision for where we want to be, but also more importantly, how we're going to get there. And I was blessed to have in 2014 that type of crew where we all bought in. And like I said, 6-7 years later, I'd hate to have my wife find out how many text messages we've shared over the years because she's wondering if I ever work during the day then too. We have about probably a minute and 8 quick questions. Otherwise, if anybody ever has questions that you would like to ask me or Kyle, you have a friend for life because you volunteered to be here today, volunteered your time and money. There's some pretty neat people in officiating. We always like to help the people that are going to replace us. So if you ever reach out to Kyle or me, we'll treat that like the bat phone, and we're going to pick it up and answer that right away and help out. So I think we're going to be breaking here at 9:30. So we'll close up. Want to appreciate everybody for jumping in, and we'll continue with the clinic. Thanks all.